So in this video, we're going to develop the Destructo bass, and I call it that because there's a ton of different harmonic distortions happening within this bass tone, and I'll let you hear it. And I'll play a couple notes just on the keyboard so you can hear some sustained values here. So it's a great bass tone, and it makes use of a few of the things that we just talked about, ring modulation and sample and hold, along with a few different interesting routings, some mod sources, both filters, and a audio effects rack within Ableton, which is this distortion rack here. So let's start having a look at the patch. So to start off with our Destructo bass here, I'm going to just quickly go through a couple things I've got set up already. One is I've got Massive loaded in on its own channel here, and I've got a little pitch plugin going into Massive just so I can rapidly adjust the incoming MIDI signal up and down if I need to. And I've also got a utility set up behind Massive there, so that if once I start adding some distortions, it starts redlining a little bit, I'm just going to be able to roll down the gain quite easily. So that's some pretty standard stuff. So we're going to take a little bit of a different approach to designing this patch than we have with our previous examples. In the previous examples, we've just designed the synth patch in a standalone synth with nothing else going on. And then when it's come time to use it in context, we've played it and added some variations and then perhaps edited some factors. Well, there's going to be enough of the sound design in this patch that's going to be based on temporal things that interact with the rest of the track, like long envelopes with long attacks with LFOs and lots of long decays. And all of those things really need to work with the tempo of the tune and work with the rest of the rhythm of the track. So I've already created a simple 2-bar drum loop and a simple MIDI pattern. And so as we revise our sound, we're going to be revising it within the context of something that already exists. And that's going to give us a little bit of a better perspective on how the changes we make are actually going to affect what we want as a result. So I'll just let you hear the drum beat to start off with. It's a simple 2-bar phrase here. And I'll let you hear the MIDI clip. And I'll let you hear the two together. And within the MIDI clip, there's a few note overlaps that you can see, and that's going to come into play when we introduce some glide time. So let's start having a look at Massive. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and go through all of my general housekeeping issues here. I'm going to start off with voicing. I'm going to go over to monophonic and legato, and then I'm going to adjust the glide time. So I'm going to start the tune playing, and we're just going to look for a nice sweet spot with the glide. Okay, that'll do for now. It might go up in a bit, but that's definitely a good starting point. So I'm also going to adjust my amp envelope here so that we get our nice on-off envelope. And then I'm going to work with the oscillator section here. So I'm going to bring up oscillator 2, and I'm going to put both oscillators into sawtooth wave. I'm going to drop the second oscillator down an octave so that we've got a nice wide tone to work with. I'm not going to detune anything yet. We're perhaps going to play around with that later on, but for right now we're fine. And I'm going to bring up a little bit of white noise. So let's have a listen to what we got now. Okay. So now to start working with the filters. So the filters are set to parallel, which is excellent because we're going to be using both of them. I'm going to put filter 1 into low pass mode and filter 2 into high pass mode. And I'm going to take the noise and route it to filter 2. And I'm going to take the oscillators, and to start with, I'm just going to route them to filter 1. We may bring a little bit of one of them over to filter 2 just to get some grit in a little while, but for right now, that's fine. I'm going to bring the low pass and open it up all the way, and I'm going to roll the high pass filter up to a little bit past noon there and bring in a little bit of resonance. So the high pass is going to be just affecting, right now, just affecting the noise. So let's have a listen. Let's have a quick listen to just the noise by itself. Okay, and we'll bring the oscillators back in. This is one of the nice things I actually like about Massive is the filters themselves have these volume sliders on the output, so I can bring the noise down slightly and the other filter up in the mix. Okay, so that's a good balance to start off with here. So now I'm going to start working with an envelope on the filter, and I'm going to work with another envelope on the amp amount of the white noise. So let's look after the white noise first, just because it's going to be an extremely quick job. And I'm just going to, again, solo the white noise here. And I'm going to bring down the amp. And I'm going to take envelope 3 and apply it to the amp section here. Bring it up in the mix. And then we're just going to adjust it so that we have a nice percussive hit at the start. Okay, that'll do for now. Let's bring the other two oscillators back in. Okay, and next up we're going to start working with the low pass filter here. So I'm going to roll down the cutoff to start off with and bring up a little bit of resonance. So let's start with envelope 2 here. Okay, that's a decent starting spot for now. We may adjust that envelope again in a little bit, or we may add another envelope to it, but to begin with, that's going to be a good starting spot. So now I'm going to start working with a couple effects just to get some grit into the mix here. And the first one is going to be adding some ring modulation. So I'm going to take my ring mod and I'm going to start with 19 semitones because I find that's a good sweet spot for this modulation oscillator. And I'm going to apply it to oscillator 1, and we're just going to start bringing it into the mix. And I'm going to actually solo Massive so we can hear exactly what we're working with. Okay, that's sounding good. Now we're also going to take the same envelope that's controlling the filter, and we're going to apply it to the ring mod amount. Going to bring that white noise down a little bit. Ring modulation can produce some very discordant results at odd or varying pitches, and that's not necessarily what I want right now, so I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to have a look at introducing some of the sample and hold. So if we pop over into our routing section here, insert 1 right now is coming just after filter 1. And that's going to be perfect because I don't want it actually affecting the output of the white noise. I want it just affecting the output of the 2 oscillators. So since the 2 oscillators are going to filter 1 and the white noise is going to filter 2, this is exactly where I want it. Now, the sample and hold insert effect defaults to having its pitch rolled all the way down. And if you remember when we talked about sample and hold, a low pitch means a very low number of samples, which means a distorted and erratic output. And that's not what I want right now. What I want is a relatively high pitch because I still want to be able to hear the actual bass line that I'm playing. So let's have a quick listen now. Okay, so we're going to take envelope 2 and we're going to apply it to the wet dry so that the sample and hold fades in. And we're going to take an LFO and apply it to the pitch. And we're just going to add a little bit and we're going to play with the settings here. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the nice features of Massive is you have a couple different ways of controlling the amount of a mod that's going to a destination. As it is, I feel like I'm still getting a little bit more of the LFO here than I want, but it's getting to the point where it's kind of clumsy trying to control that with the variations in this mod slot on the pitch amount. So I'm just going to control it with the amp section here. And that gives me some fine control over bringing that down. Okay, that sounded good. So I also want to introduce a little bit of feedback here. But again, I want the feedback to be coming from the output of filter 1 only. So I'm going to select that in my routing section. And I'm going to map it back into filter 1 only as opposed to filter 1 and 2. And I'm going to start this playing and then bring it up in the mix a little. Okay, that's getting nice and gritty here. So, next up, I'm going to add a little bit of distortion to the overall mix here. We'll start with the classic tube. Bring that up a little. Okay, I'm liking the sound of that. And we'll add a little bit of reverb as well. And we're going to do a couple funny things with the reverb. We're going to control the size and we're going to control the wet dry through a couple of the modulators that we've got set up. So let's try LFO on size. And we'll try envelope 2 on the wet dry. I'm actually going to try that in an inverted setting here. Okay, that's sounding good so far, so let's listen to that with the beat. can really hear the gritty harmonic property that the sample and hold is adding as well. And I want a little bit more motion in the filter here. So I'm going to introduce an LFO, and let's just hear how that sounds. That sounds awesome. So now we're going to pop back into Ableton, and I'm going to introduce an audio effect rack here. We're going to start off by adding an instance of Redux, and I'm going to turn it into an audio effect rack, and I'm going to create a second chain. And I'm just going to quickly rename these. Distortion and dry. Okay, so under the distortion side here, there's actually a couple other effects that I want to line up after the Redux. The one is going to be an instance of the auto filter, and the other one is going to be a reverb. So, to start with, I'm going to switch the Redux into the soft downsampling mode. The hard downsampling mode is amazing as an effect, but it's a little too much in terms of what we're after here. I'm just going to solo the distortion channel, and I'll turn off these two effects just so that we can hear the Redux only right now. Okay, so that's a good starting point for the downsampling there. The auto filter I'm going to put into high pass mode because we're just going to be after, again, a little bit of the top end harmonic distortion that's happening from the downsampling. So I don't want to have all of these low frequencies coming in interfering. So the high pass is going to help us out with that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of reverb just to help it settle in the mix a bit. And this is going to be harmonically involved with the rest of our bass line. And so even though we're not adding a ton of reverb or a ton of anything spatial to the rest of our bass line, this is just going to help it sit in the mix and have a little bit of space around it and air around it. So let's listen to the two channels together now. I'm going to bring the distortion down in the mix a little bit, and I'm probably going to tighten up that reverb a little. It's a little long. Get rid of the pre-delay, and I'll bring it in a little bit, down a little bit. Okay, that sounded good. So now I'm going to add a compressor. I'm not going to do a lot with the compressor here. I'm just going to be tying those two layers back together. So I've set it into RMS mode, and I brought the threshold down a little bit to the point where we're hearing a little bit of a difference, but we're not seeing much in the way of gain reduction. Because all I'm after is actually just a gel on the two layers, we're really going to kind of listen with our ears here and not with our eyes in this case. So even though I'm not seeing much in the way of gain reduction, I'm definitely hearing that we're getting a little bit of a volume increase and that it's overall feeling a little bit more gelled together. So that's going to work for me. Okay, so let's listen to this in context with the beat again. That's sounding great. There's one more fun thing that I want to try, and I'm going to use an auto pan to achieve this. I'm just going to apply it after the auto filter on my distortion channel here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amount of the auto pan, I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm going to take the phase and set it so it's at 0. Now this means that it's not actually going to have any panning effect at all. It's going to simply function as a volume shaper. So it's going to be almost like a sine wave LFO that's applied to the overall volume. So I'm going to use that to just get a little bit of extra rhythmic pulsing that's just going to be applied to that distortion channel only. So let's listen. And this is going to benefit from being clocked to the track. So let's start off at the 1/12 setting there. Okay, that sounded good. And let's hear them together. All right. Now let's listen to everything together again. So that's an awesome tone. It's nice and it's low slung, so it's got a lot going on in the low ranges. Still has some nice harmonic distortion that's coming through thanks to the ring modulator and thanks to the sample and hold. And while it's a really involved sounding bass tone, it still leaves lots of room in the mix for leads and call-in responses and other things that are going to take up some of the higher harmonic range. So in Massive, we've used a couple oscillators, the ring modulator, the white noise, the sample and hold insert, and a couple insert effects, along with both filters and a ton of modulators. And that's helped us to create that patch, which played just ad hoc. Sounds great. And again, it's the sample and hold that's providing that nice gritty harmonic distortion that's happening in the top end there. The ring modulator is giving the sample and hold a ton to work with, but it's the sample and hold that's really helping provide a lot of that grit. And that's how two of the older synthesizer functions, ring modulation and sample and hold, can be utilized in designing a modern bass patch. They provide a lot of grit and are a definite asset to be able to work with.